Okay. Got a couple of councillors in the chamber today, so we'll have some audio anomalies as we move our way through today, but officially want to call this the final meeting of this term of council to order. And we have Councillor Mazan is still trying to log on, but the rest of councillors are here. She's with us here in the chambers today, and we do have all of our senior management team as well. We also today want to acknowledge that we're on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples, and it's Indigenous peoples that have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations. Their stewardship throughout the ages is certainly recognized. And we talked about it before, but also the district talked about our friendship accord that was signed a little over a month ago now. And for council, if you haven't had an opportunity to look at that, or even for members of the public, it's a great foundation for working together. And
you have to turn your audio on speakers. No, your computer speaker, not just the
that might be. There we go. I think we're beyond the hiccup there, so we're good. But I encourage everyone to understand that foundation of a true reconciliation with our Indigenous peoples. There were no public comments on today's meeting. There is no supplementary agenda, but I will ask at this time if we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest. I am not seeing any. Thank you. With that, we can move on. Let's move right through to our consent agenda and adoption of a few prior meeting minutes, moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the November 9th, 2022 consent agenda, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. And that is the October 12th General Finance Committee meeting minutes, action item 2. October 12th Council minutes, October 13th Planning Committee meeting minutes, and action items 1 through 10. Any comments or questions on that? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our resolution that came out of General and Finance regarding our Peninsula Lions Club refund. Does anybody want to speak to that? Any staff members? I think we're probably okay. So I have a resolution moved by Councillor Everts, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Muskoka Lakes hereby agrees to support the Peninsula Lions Club and waive and refund the rental fees associated with the rental of the Peninsula Recreation Centre in relation to the July 4th to 11th, 2022 fundraising events. Any other comments? All those in favor? That too is carried. Mr. CAO, over to you. Item 8A.
Thanks, Your Worship, and good afternoon, members of council. This staff report deals with term accomplishments, and you'll recall, I'll take you back a few years, you'll recall that our journey together started with the approval of our strategic plan, or updated strategic plan, as well as a related implementation plan. And since then, council has provided direction on and been very supportive of staff completing various continuous improvement projects and strategic projects to modernize the township and the way we do business. And I think it goes without saying, but the respectful, professional, collaborative approach between the council team and the administrative team have enabled us to achieve these accomplishments that are outlined in this document. I really do believe it's something for all of us to truly celebrate. So on behalf of the strategic leadership team, I want to thank you for your support over the term and wish each and every one of you continued success. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any comments? Councillor Zavitz.
Excuse me. Thank you. And then through you, Chair. I think there's another one to be added to this excellent list. very recent, as of yesterday, the trailers that were at the Battle Bay Inn that we all fought against for so many years have been moved. They're gone from Bala. So that is an incredible achievement. And I would take no credit for that, but certainly I know an awful lot of people are chiming in now. So thank you to those who managed to make that happen. I do have pictures of the trailers in Manette, so they're someone else's problem. Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Anybody else? Any comments? I just want to comment to staff in particular, and see how Hammond made it. Council, we set a strategic plan 2 years ago now, but staff have been the ones to really execute upon that plan. And for all the staff who are on here, you make council look good because you truly execute our vision. And we did a lot based on a pandemic, based on floods. Staff continually, every quarter, were challenged with new and different issues that had oftentimes never been faced before. So just personally, I want to thank staff for your dedication to the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Thank you. Okay, we have moving on to our bylaws. We have site plan control to designate, and we'll deal with that in a moment, but moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-177, being a bylaw to designate site plan control, Carroll, Lot 35, Concession 12, Lot 86, Plan 32, Medora, Roll 417-103, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any comments on designation of site plan? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And then we'll move into some of our planning applications. And the first of which, who would like to address this? Where am I at here? Melman McCormick. Mr. Soya, welcome. Good morning. Afternoon, I guess it is.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon. In October, Planning Committee recommended approval of lot addition applications B17 through to B21, 2022, Muskoka Lakes, and concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 19 in the name of 1922 in the names of 2622551 Ontario Inc. and Melman, and also McCormack. And these applications involve changes in common lot boundaries between 3 abutting properties and the establishment of rights of way and easements over the subject lands in favor of these 3 lots. And the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to recognize resultant side yard setbacks of several existing structures and to grant exemptions to the maximum lot coverage requirements. Planning Committee recommended approval subject to a minor amendment to the draft bylaw with to update lot coverage amounts for resultant lots 2 and 3, along with corresponding updates to Schedule 2. And please also note that due to a rounding error, there's a slight change between the Planning Committee resolution and the resolution that is before you today. The Planning Committee resolution had stated that the resultant lot coverage on Unit 21 or resultant lot 3 would be 11% based on the square footage amounts of existing structures. And as the township typically rounds to 1 decimal place, the resultant lot coverage,
delegates for this.
The resultant lot coverage should be 10.9%. So therefore, this minor revision is incorporated into the resolution. Also, please note today's resolution also involves a minor amendment to update Schedule 3 of the draft bylaw. Schedule 3 is a site plan showing the locations of the proposed easements. And after Planning Committee in October, it was noted that an update to the descriptions in the legend was required to accurately correspond with the easement labels on the plan. So for clarity purposes, this legend update has been made, and therefore today's resolution also mentions a minor amendment to update this schedule. And both revised schedules are attached to today's agenda. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I believe there's some delegations today to speak to this matter. Thank you.
Mr. Soya, thank you. And my apologies. I thought my microphone was off when I asked our clerk's department if the delegates were in. But we do have a number of delegates. And first on my list would be that, I believe, of Mr. List, Bob List. But we are not seeing him. So we will move on to number 2, and that is Barbara Grossman. And I do see Barbara is in with us today. Barbara, we will turn the floor over to you. Unless she's frozen. Nope. She might be on a delay of 20 seconds, I'm going to guess. Barbara, are you there? You might be listening through the YouTube link versus the live link. Barbara, can you hear us? If you can, the floor is yours. Got to think after 2 years, we'd have figured out the Zoom technology. Barbara, we've now muted yourself. Can you hear us? If you can, you feel free to unmute and you can address council. Who's having computer issues? Oh, you had it there for a moment. There, don't touch.
Apologies. We wished to speak only in response to any submissions made by the objector. So we have put forward our submissions and correspondence, and I understood that Mr. Ross had registered as a delegation to speak on behalf of the objector. So we would prefer to let him go first and answer if there's anything to answer.
Okay, we will hold your comments at that point. Do we have Mr. Shantz? Paul Shantz? Is he here? I don't.
Yeah, he's in the meeting.
In the meeting, his camera is off, I understand. Mr. Shantz, we'll get you to turn your camera back on. There we go. And the floor is yours. Or do you want to wait and hear as well?
I will defer to Barb. I'm just here in support of her. So same comment as her, Barbara Grossman.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to assume that Mr. Melman is in the same camp to respond accordingly. So I'm going to skip over Mr. Melman. Thank you. And I think Mr. Ross, if you
very well, thank you.
The other half over to you.
Thank you. I believe you met with my partner about a month ago on this issue. The issue here is that there's an outstanding lawsuit. Mr. Melman sold us a part of a much larger compound that he has. My clients are Mr. Diamond, Ms. Walker. He sold a part of that compound, and there's a whole issue over a right-of-way, and that it applies to a much smaller part. It's a historic right-of-way from 1969. It applies to a much smaller parcel of land that Mr. Melman assembled he assembled it with other parts of land about 22 years ago and built a large family compound. And now he's severing off pieces and selling selling the land. The issue that we have with this in particular is that there are a number of issues that still need to be dealt with in the lawsuit. And this application seems like an end run. It's an attempt as an end run around some of the issues in the lawsuit. Number one, there's an issue of servicing wastewater, hydro, which is underground underneath my client's property. They didn't know when they bought it. And there's a whole new plan of servicing here that's part of this application, easements that are sought for servicing. And there's absolutely no plan as to what that means for our clients' servicing. And we potentially risk being cut off from servicing and having to spend enormous sums of money to have our servicing retained. That's number one. Number two, the servicing with the driving right of way will permit service vehicles to come on and service what are units 17 and 21, and frankly, unit 15 as well, because this servicing is going to terminate and be permitted on that unit 21 property, which means, however, the right of way is only for the benefit of a part of the unit 21 property. So it's an overburdening of the right of way, which is for a far more limited. It's for vehicular and pedestrian passage, but only for that small part of unit 21. Now it's vehicular passage, which will necessarily be able to service units 15 and 17, which is an issue that's squarely before the courts in the current proceeding. So for that reason, there are complications with approving this, and we ask that this be deferred while the lawsuit is ongoing. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hold Mr. Melman and Ms. Grossman and Shantz at a moment right now, but I know that Councillor Bridgman, who's chair of our planning department or planning committee in that particular, has some comments, would like to add in. I know it's a little bit out of order. I'm sure that Mr. Melman and Ms. Grossman and Shantz have commented that we're okay with this going forward, as we were a month ago, but I'm going to turn to Councillor Bridgman and then maybe also Director Pink.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Harding. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Ross, but I want to take you back to when this first came to us, because we wanted to make sure we were on solid ground and we have our legal opinion on this. So what you are talking about, basically, from my perspective, comes down to neighbor against neighbor. It has nothing to do with the township. And thus, I believe there is nothing more to discuss. This is a rejigging of lands that are already owned. And I fully support moving forward with this. I don't believe we have any place in what you are talking about here. And that is our legal opinion. So that's my comment.
Okay, Mr. Ross, if you can just hold on one moment, we may come back to you, but Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I just wanted to satisfy in my own mind that each of these lots have water access. And my reasoning for the question again is that, in fact, many times, I'm not saying that this is the case for this property, but many times permits are allowed because they have water access. So they have access, they don't have to have just road access, more or less. So I'm just not sure about some of the concerns about the septic and the wells. If some of the water access, for instance, has any role in that, and I'll just wait for David Pink for his explaining.
Okay, I'm going to look at this point to either Mr. Soya, Mr. Pink, or maybe Mr. Sharp. If anybody we have, as Councillor Bridgman has suggested, we've had advice from a number of people that this really is a property matter between two. But Mr. Sharp, maybe you want to comment on and giving council some comfort in moving forward with this.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, Council. Yeah, just to reiterate what I think has already been said, we have received an opinion from our solicitor with respect to the position that the township is in with regard to these applications, and we have received confirmation that a decision can be made by council. And just with respect to water access, the properties do front onto the water, as we know, and nothing would prevent the applicants from accessing their properties via water. They may need mainland parking and docking to do that, but that would be to their own arrangement. But I would just, aside from that point, I would just remind council that part of the applications that we have in front of us today is to grant rights of way over existing private driveways for access to the 3 properties that are involved. So there will be legal rights of way established as part of these applications. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'm going to go to first and second reading, and then we may have some more comments. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Jagwitz, seconded by Councillor Mazin. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-80 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, 2622551 Ontario Inc. Melman, McCormick, Rule 5956, 5957, and 5958 be read a first and second time. All those in favor and first and second? That is carried. Thank you very much. We do have some minor amendments. Before I go to those, though, Mr. Ross, you've heard certainly from our staff and that we've had legal counsel suggesting that we are okay, that we're not changing anything. I'll give you just a brief moment if you wanted to make a further comment.
In advance of the council meeting in October, I had written and I pointed out that we have no idea what was given to the town solicitor in terms of what the issues were that the town solicitor considered, generally speaking, and whether or not our particular issues of the overburdening were brought to the town solicitor's attention, or the issue of our underground servicing. So in the vacuum, I accept that the township solicitor was consulted, but there's a complete vacuum as far as we're concerned, and as far as we're aware in terms of what was before the town solicitor and what was considered.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Sharp, maybe you can just chime in that our solicitor was certainly given the right information from prior delegations. Is there anything that our solicitor would not have had information as Mr. Ross has just requested?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't believe so. The solicitor was provided the details of the application and provided an opinion on that basis. Thank you.
I will ask quickly before we move on, and I realize Mr. Melman and Ms. Grossman and Mr. Shantz happy to rebut. Mr. Ross has asked for a deferral at this point. I will ask you in particular if you would be okay with a deferral. Are you okay if council was to move forward with this today? I know it's a bit of a strange request. Would you like to try to solve some of these issues with your neighbors, or are you okay if council votes on this today? Not sure who wants to answer that. Barbara?
Yes, we're strenuously opposed to any further deferral of this. And in fact, I can add to the last comment that from the supplementary staff report, after the first deferral, it clearly states that the township's own independent solicitor was provided with the letter of objection from Mr. Ross, as well as my correspondence that was sent to him, and then I can confirm was copied to him. If there are any concerns on that the township council members have, I would like to address them. But if you have no concerns as arising out of what you've heard from Mr. Ross, then I do have one request, which is that it proceed today, and that the meeting record show that the municipal staff report was prepared by, summarized by, and signed by 3 qualified land use planners, Messrs. Soja, Sharp, and Pink, that the representations made on behalf of the applicants included land use planning submissions made by a qualified land use planner, Mr. Bob List, and that the objector did not at any stage, neither today nor on the prior occasions, make any land use planning submissions by a qualified land use.
Barbara, I don't want to get into a discussion on court proceedings. The record is the record. We have access to that via YouTube and also the minutes of each meeting. So thank you for that. The bottom line, I think, is that you would like to proceed, and I think that's generally going to be council's wish as well. So we'll get you to mute your microphone. Council, I'm going to go to the minor amendments at this particular time prior to third reading, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Jagowitz. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2022-80 2622-551 Ontario Inc., Melman McCormick. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. These amendments shall consist of updated lot coverage amounts of 6,100 square feet or 11% and 5,740 square feet or 10.9% on resultant lot 2 Melman and resultant lot 3 2622-551 Ontario Inc. respectively, and related revisions to Schedule 2 of bylaw 2022-80 and revisions to Schedule 3 of bylaw 2022-80 to reflect updated easement descriptions in the legend. Any comments on the minor amendments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Third and final reading, moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-80 2622-551 Ontario Inc. Melman McCormick be read a third time and finally passed. Council, any questions of staff or anyone or any concerns prior to third reading? I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Mr. Melman, Ms. Grossman, Mr. Shantz, thank you very much for your time, and Mr. Ross as well. Thank you for your comments as well. Okay, moving on. The Hickey application. Who's got that one? Mr. Soya? Sam?
Thank you, Your Worship. In October, Planning Committee recommended approval of concurrent applications B2422 ML and ZBA 2422 in the name of Hickey. The purpose of the applications is to divide the subject lands into 3 vacant lots and to provide an exemption from the minimum lot frontage requirement for retained lot number 1. Planning Committee recommended 2 minor amendments to the draft bylaw. The first is that a revised consent sketch be incorporated as a schedule. So as a result of an environmental assessment, a minor change to the proposed lot line between the severed lot and the retained lot number 2 was made, and therefore a change to the schedule showing the resultant lots is required. The environmental assessment also recommends a specific development envelope on the retained lot number 2. In order to only permit development within this envelope, a minor amendment is recommended to identify this building envelope within the bylaw. Since the October Planning Committee meeting, an additional public submission was received in opposition to the proposal from Mr. John Gates, who I believe is here as a delegate today, and to speak to his submission. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I see Mr. Fauner has joined us. Stephen, did you want to comment ahead of any of the other issues we face? Stephen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Harding, members of council. Steve Fauner, I'm Northern Vision Planning, and I'm representing Sean Hickey, the applicant in this case. I just want to make a few quick points if I could. I certainly understand that people don't like to see change, and these backlots can be potentially, adversarial. But I would like to say that, we did supply an addendum EIS. I supplied planning comments, that referred to the objections. We supplied that information. The zoning's been in place on the property for 34 years. And in these days, you can access that by way of your computer from home. You don't have to go into the office to have access to the zoning. So I think the zoning is fairly well known in that area. And I believe my client's gone beyond the requirements, certainly the requirements of staff. We weren't required to do an addendum EIS, but we did provide that. And I also provided certain comments as well. I would say the overall density meets the backlot provisions of the OP and the zoning bylaw. And I would say that these are large lots, or 2 additional lots being created, and certainly much larger than the waterfront lots in the area. There's approximately 24 lots that sort of feed into the frontage of this lot. So a considerable number of lots, and they're certainly not the size of these lots. I would note Jamie Nairn has had some further comments on Ms. Middleton's submission. He also uses iNaturalist, and when he zooms in to the property, There are no sightings of Blanding's turtle or spotted turtle or Massasauga rattlesnakes are noted. He's also said too that there was an assertion that there's no habitat here for certain species, and Jamie has said that there is. They just move through the area, and he did not say there wasn't any habitat at all. And he also just wanted to say too that picture 3, I think, of a submission by Miss Middleton is not iNaturalist. And he said that the caption for picture 3 is not correct. And the wetland areas are small, poorly drained pockets, but there's not significant wetland areas. So I would also go on to say that Sandy Boss has noted in his report for the north lot that it's a wooded lot. He did not note any wetland areas. He did note the south lot as having wetland areas. And I would also note too, in the recent submission by Mr. Bates, I'm not sure what that gets us, because he's actually suggesting that the frontage on the retained land, number 1 being the north lot, actually be reduced. And we've certainly heard that some people have had concerns about that exemption to the frontage. We could have changed that and made it frontage included or redefine the frontage. And that would have been approximately 1,400 feet on the township road. However, some of it is just seasonally maintained. So anyways, we feel we have a definitely worthwhile application. And I like to think that we've addressed the concerns of the neighbors, although I'm sure we're going to hear from them. And I'm here to answer any questions of council and anything that might arise from those objections. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have a few people I know in objection. Is there anybody else just who's with us who is in favor of the application that wants to speak? Maybe you could raise your electronic hand or not. I think we've covered those off, but I will go then. My order in my list is Penny Middleton is first, followed by Byron Wilfred. Penny, welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon, Mayor Harding. I'm not sure who's all there, but I would like to wish you a good afternoon to council members. I continue to strongly oppose this application. I have expressed my concerns with the severance between Lot 1 and 2. Several of the neighbors, including myself, continue to ask why a severance is required and requested. We have not received an answer to this question, and I continue to be puzzled by this. In addition, it was noted at the last planning meeting, a building envelope would be provided in order to give us a perspective of future housing, size, position on the property, and a number of outbuildings allowed. And we have not received this documentation, as well as continue to be opposed by any residential development. Again, many adjoining property owners are very concerned, as I am, that if this severed lot is accepted, and I'm not sure now, I see that the draft acceptance sheet that's submitted is now 525 feet. I thought it was 530, so I'm in error, I suppose. That it will set a precedence for the continuation of downsizing lots. The planning department was to have researched back to the early 1990s when the official plan designated back lots as residential, and why we weren't given notice, because most of us are still the original homeowners along this area. We haven't received any response to this question again, and I ask again, how many hundreds of thousands of acres in Muskoka are affected? I'd like to provide some further information to support the overall environmental concerns we continue to have regards to endangered and species at risk. In my last correspondence, October the 15th, I provided research and confirming evidence with regards to the existence of endangered and species at risk. And just to comment on Mr. Fanner's, I spoke to an environmentalist at iNaturalist, and they did say that they have noted sightings of Blanding's turtles there. So there's a contradiction there. And again, I'm puzzled. There are outside agents. These are outside agencies that I have researched, and just to pick up, they have their own scientists, environmentalists that explore these backlot lands and have claimed that these animals are there. This information is available to everyone, is unbiased, free of expense to the general public, accurate and open to contributions from any observer. It was stated by a deacon that there was no habitat that could sustain the blanding turtle. So I looked up the definition of habitat because I believe he said they may transverse the area, but they don't live there. A habitat does include the ability of creatures and species to transverse the area. And this backlot area contains all of the animals' needs to survive, such as food, shelter, and nesting. I've done some additional research with the Land Between organization, and that was established in 2006. And it also protects and conserves turtles. This bioregion extends, some of us may know, from Simcoe County through to Parry Sound, across Muskoka to the highlands of the Ottawa Valley. Muskoka is home to 30% of Blanding's turtles and lives in one of the only intact landscapes left in southern Ontario. They also work with community awareness and proactive strategies to save this endangered species. This is a unique ecosystem that we live in and contains many elements of specific habitats for animals living on the Canadian Shield and the lowland area. The landscape to low, wet, and dry areas, lakes, streams, and rivers. And we all know this because we live and work and play here.
Penny, we're at about 5 minutes, and just wondering if you could wrap it up, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I am hoping that good decisions would be based on fact, data, and with supporting evidence sent with the priorities for the future of Muskoka's beautiful forests and waters. I believe that I've provided my own research and data rooted in years of observations. So in closing, I hope the right decision is made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Who are we up next? Brian Wilfred. Mr. Wilfred, good afternoon.
It's Brian Wilford, BRYON. I would certainly echo the comments made by Penny Middleton. There has been no rationale given, in my view, with regard to the need to downsize the lot. This notion that somehow it's been zoned for 34 years, if the same process was taken as it was now in notifying the landowners, that's why no one knew clearly of the present zoning for the last 34 years. So I would suggest that that's certainly one thing that needs to be corrected. But it's not much of a defense to say that it's been zoned. It's not very open or transparent. In terms of the downsizing, that sets a precedent. Doesn't matter what's going on in Gravenhurst or Bracebridge. In this area, this would be a new introduction. Also, to point out to you that access from these lots, presumably people are going to be living there. Where are they going to access the lake? Well, I assume then they will cross over existing property owners down to the lake, particularly obviously in the wintertime. But again, the planning committee, which of course you're all members of, have already made up their mind, which is very clear that this is so-called progress. Well, it's not much of a progress when in fact we have not taken into account certainly the environmental comments that Ms. Middleton has made, certainly the downsizing, have not seen any thing from the planning department or from the applicant with regard to what a possible structure would look like, the footprint on the lands. And again, that is something which we asked for last month. So again, I think that the development here is going to be tip of the iceberg, and we're going to see I'm sure further applications come forth. And again, probably further downsizing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate your comments. Do we have Michelle?
Yes, I'm back. Hello,
Welcome.
good afternoon, Mayor Harding and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I'm here representing my brother, Michael Hannicanen, and myself. We remain fully opposed to the Hickey property application approved at the planning committee level and the precedent that it may set for further applications. There was more than adequate frontage to create 3 lots without the request to change the bylaw to 530 feet for retained lot 1, and each would still have a relatively equal and as well sizable lot. We felt that the request to change the bylaw and why it was needed was not sort of properly discussed or questioned at the committee level. Mr. Hickey, one of the applicants, was present and was happy to answer questions, but none were actually posed to him directly, only sort of what was presented by Mr. Fauner. Well, it has been said verbally that only 1 dwelling should be allowed per lot. We propose the following conditions be added if council's decision is today to move forward on this application. Number 1 is no future subdivided lots be allowed beyond these 3 lots discussed in the application. Number 2, that no more than 1 dwelling be allowed on each of the subdivided lots now or in the future, and the requirement of a building site plan, which we have not received. This will somehow at least ensure that we limit the potential environmental damage, preserve the habitat, and prevent future overdevelopment and density on the back lots if this is going to move forward. I know I spoke the last time about quality of life for all of its citizens. This is part of the vision plan, and I hope council will keep this in mind when moving forward and making a decision today, because it does affect the entire Woodruff Road community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bates. Mr. Gates, sorry. I see Paul Bates on the screen, but I see John Gates. I'm not sure if you're one and the same.
John is my first name, but I go by Paul. Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, and councillors. You are our primary voice and conscience regarding municipal governance and development. If a compromise could be achieved, then a win-win result would be the outcome for the applicant, their neighbors, and the municipality. By moving the northeast border point on Woodruff of the severed lot 193 feet north, and likewise somewhat less with the southeast border point, we can achieve the required 660 feet minimum frontage and 11 acres size of lot. The result is, in addition to lot number 2 of 1.3 acres to 7 acres total, making building in lot number 2 much more feasible. Could you please turn to my sketch submitted with my submission titled Proposal 2? As a point of reference, the upper lot line of the severed lot in my sketch is directly opposite my lot line on the opposite side of Woodruff Road. This is precisely at the 1138 address post of Woodruff, below the hill of the severed lot, and is 400 feet from the lake. The Hickeys indicated in my discussion with them this past weekend that they had no intention of developing lot 1, which is on the opposite side of the road from both my property and theirs. However, as circumstances can change, it is conceivable that this might change in the future. This lot number 1 appears to be a reasonable location for 1 residence. Lot number 1 would have roughly 1,326 feet frontage of 15.5 acres, while lot number 2 would have roughly 1,168 feet frontage and 7 acres. Note these frontage distances are point to point. Actual Woodruff Road frontage is 3,377 feet, more than ample for necessary compliance without the need for a variance. 1 mile long Woodruff Road is funneled into by close to 3 miles of waterfront residences, resulting in 1 home every 100 feet, which thus becomes urban density, not rural density. Woodruff Road needs to be differentiated from most other waterfront areas where road traffic and congestion are not nearly as prevalent. And I'll backtrack for 1 second. May I see by a show of hands, how many members on the panel have had an opportunity to drive by this parcel of land?
I'm not going to actually have council do that at that particular time.
Oh,
Ms. Gates.
okay.
Just, I appreciate that. And so.
That's fine.
Okay.
I learned this morning while walking with friends that Kilty Bay Road on Stewart Lake, which is 1 mile away from Woodruff Road, has 2/3 the number of residences on it compared to Woodruff, and yet is more than 50% longer. In other words, far less density and traffic. Finally, I propose a covenant on title be placed on the 3 remaining lots, or wording added to the present application, as was indicated to Mr. Soya prior to the October 13th hearing, to restrict further development or severing on the 3 lots resulting from this hearing. Some degree of certainty is requested to be given to those of us with a lifelong financial and family investment on Woodruff Road. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't believe we have anyone else to speak today. One question I want to ask, and maybe Mr. Soya, you can answer, because in the minor amendment, we talk about a restricted development envelope identified in figure 4, and I just haven't seen figure 4, and I'm not sure that those in oppositions may have seen figure 4 and the addendum to the scope of environmental report. So maybe we can sort of put that up just so that the public can see what we are talking about as far as an addendum and what where development would be controlled.
I believe that figure 4 was attached to the planning committee agenda in October as part of that. The addendum was attached at that time, and I can see if I can locate that here. So if I'm able to screen share, if I'm able to do that, then I can do that now.
We'll give you the con. Go ahead. There we go.
So this is figure 4 within that addendum to the environmental report, and the identified building envelope is shown with a crosshatch where my cursor is here. It's shown in that location at the north end of retained lot number 2.
Okay, that's great. Okay, committee, any questions, or council, excuse me, any questions at this particular time before first and second reading? I have a resolution moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-90 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Hickey Rule 4735 be ready first and second time. First and second, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have some minor amendments moved by Councillor Jagowitz, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2022-90 Hickey, and this amendment is minor in nature and does not require further public circulation, is hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendment shall consist of a revised Schedule 2 to bylaw 2022-90, and that buildings and structures on retained lot 2 be restricted to the development envelope identified in figure 4, included in the addendum to the scoped environmental report dated September 28th, 2022, prepared by Beacon Environmental. Any comments on this? I have one comment of planning staff and just a question. We state in here that it is retained lot 2, and yet is the retained lot 2 the what I'll call the southernmost lot with the wetland feature, or is that retained lot 1? That is retained lot 2. I was thinking of that as retained lot 1, but that's fine. That is retained lot 2. Want to make sure we're accurate. Okay. Any further comments or questions at this time? Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. Just for clarification, because I'm sensing that the people who have taken the time to come forward here don't understand, like, the site plan is between the owner and the township. You don't, I think I heard we have a right to see this, and I'm wondering if we could get a little more clarification in terms of the planning, how that works, because I don't want them to think that we've ignored them. But that's not, we have principles and legislation that we have to work within, and those rights go with those properties. And but I don't think for site plan, I wonder if Mr. Soya or Mr. Sharp could just explain that the site plan really isn't part of the neighbors.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm not sure from a planning staff perspective who wants to handle it. Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can just briefly explain the process. So under Section 41 of the Planning Act is a section of the Act that deals with site plan control. And essentially what it will require is, prior to the development of these lots, if they're created, there would be a need to submit an application for site plan approval. And as part of that process, the applicant would need to submit a site plan indicating where the proposed development will be located on the lot. There'll be details provided with respect to access. There'd be an opportunity for the township's planning department to work and collaborate with our internal departments, such as Public Works Department with respect to entrances, Development Services with respect to septic system locations. The environmental reports that have been prepared would be attached as a schedule to the eventual site plan agreement that would be created as part of that process, and the recommendations would be implemented through the process. There would be a requirement for the applicant to sign off on the agreement itself, and it would be registered on title and would be binding on any future landowners if the lots were to change hands in the future. So that's just a very general summary of what the site plan process looks like. But to Councillor Bridgman's point, with respect to the site plan control under Section 41 of the Planning Act, there is no requirement in those instances to circulate a public notice. So it's strictly just a matter that's dealt with at the staff level. So happy to provide any more insight if needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that provides some clarity for those who spoke to us today, that as this development, assuming council does pass it, moves forward, that staff will certainly implement the best environmental policies possible. Regarding the minor amendments, I have read the minor amendment. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? That carries. For the record, anybody want to oppose? Got that carried. Thank you. Okay, on to third reading. Moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-90 in the name of Hickey be read a third time and finally passed. Any final comments? I just want to make one as we go on, that I think council certainly has heard the neighbors. Some of them were just about moving some lot lines, that there could still be 3 lots, but we're talking about some, at the end of the day, there are some inherent rights to the back lot and this property. And I think that's what council is recognizing as this moves forward. But I do know that certainly staff and Mr. Hickey, I have driven down the road. But has certainly wants to be a good neighbor and a good steward of the environment as this moves forward. So I'm sure that they will proceed accordingly. I read third reading. Any other comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And for those neighbors, we appreciate your support. And again, staff, we'll be keeping an eye out for this. Mr. Fauner, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mayor Harding and council. Have a good day. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jagowitz.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You didn't ask for those opposed on the last motion. I was opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, we don't have to always do that. If it carries handily, we can move on with that. Our next application is in the name of Henke, not to be confused with Hickey. Ms. Walker.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Your Worship. In October, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 39/22 bylaw 2022-141 in the name of Henke. The subject property is known municipally as 1808 Brackenridge Road. Bylaw 2022-145 will have the effect of rezoning severed lot 2 from rural RU1 to waterfront residential backlot WR2. In October, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application. No minor amendments are required in this case, and no new submissions have been received since the October Planning Committee meeting. I have no further comments, but I am happy to assist with any questions Council may have.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to do first and second. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-145 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Henke Rule 2.11.2 be read a first and second time. Any comments? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. No minor amendments. On to third reading, moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-145 Henke be read a third time and finally passed. Prior to third reading, Council, any comments? Any questions? All those in favor? That too is carried. Okay, who are we moving on to now? Josh Pura. Ms. Walker, is that you again? Nope, Mr. Soya, sorry. I see Caitlin's got her green line up, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. In October, Planning Committee recommended approval of zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 28/22 in the name of Josh Pura. The subject property is vacant and the applicants propose to construct a single family dwelling. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to recognize the lot area of the property, thereby deeming it to be a building lot in order to permit future development. This property has a lot area that is 14 square feet less than the minimum permitted lot area of 15,000 square feet. And the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to recognize, as I've already stated, that size. Although Planning Committee did recommend approval, they asked township staff to visit the property once more to determine if development of the property may result in any stormwater management concerns. Planning and public works staff did visit the site again, and given the small size and steepness of the property, and also in consideration of stormwater concerns that were raised at the public meeting, staff would recommend that the property be made subject to site plan control, which would provide staff with an opportunity to require a stormwater management report to ensure that post-development stormwater flows will not exceed pre-development flows. If council would like to make development of the property subject to site plan control, a site plan control bylaw can be prepared for the December council meeting, but direction from council would be required. And also please note there are no minor amendments required to the bylaw. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to first and second reading, moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-109 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Josh Pura, Rule 2-2687 be read a first and second time. All those in favor of first and second? That's carried. Council, what's our feeling on site plan control? I see one nod, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. I'm getting thumbs up from everyone. Mr. Soya, I think just a direction to staff to prepare for site plan to come to December council meeting would be appreciated. Thank you. Okay. There are no minor amendments. Third and final, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, second by Councillor Hayes. Be resolved that bylaw 2022-109, Josh Pura, be read a third time and finally passed. Any final comments before third? Seeing none, all those in favor? That too is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Muskoka Conservancy, and I do believe that Mr. Sale may be here. I saw him maybe just watching. But who wants to introduce this one? Oh, Ms. Walker. I see the green line stays around Mr. Soya before you speak, so that's what's been confusing to me.
Thank you, Your Worship. In October, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 29/22 bylaw 2022-110 in the name of Muskoka Conservancy. The subject properties have no civically assigned address. Bylaw 2022-110 will have the effect of rezoning the subject lands from waterfront residential WR5 to environmental protection EP1. In October, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application. No minor amendments are required and no new submissions have been received since the October Planning Committee meeting. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to first and second. Moved by Councillor Mazan, second by Councillor Jagowitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-110 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Muskoka Conservancy Rule 42686-2 and 42685-3 be read a first and second time. First and second, all those in favor? And Councillor Jagowitz got in just under the wire as you had moved this. Appreciate it. Thank you. No minor amendments. Third reading, moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-110 Muskoka Conservancy be read a third time and finally passed. Any final comments? All those in favor? That too carries. Thank you. Terry. I'm looking for the camera to turn on. There we go, Ms. Crowder. Emily.
Thank you, Mayor Harding. In October, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 3122ML, bylaw 2022-121 in the name of Terry. The subject property is known municipally as 130 Island R60, otherwise known as Tobin Island. The purpose of zoning bylaw 2022-121 is to permit a dock and boathouse to encroach within minimum side yard setback requirements and permit a boathouse to exceed the maximum permitted length requirements. In October, Planning Committee recommended the approval of the application to Council. No new submissions were received after the October Planning Committee meeting. I have no further comments, but would be happy to assist Council with any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving to first and second, moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Jagowitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-121 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Terry Rule 42859 be read a first and second time. All those in favor, first and second? That one is carried. No minor amendments. On to third, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-121 Terry be read a third time and finally passed. Any comments from council on third reading? Seeing none, all those in favor? That too is carried. There we go. Carroll application. I do believe we have a delegate who wanted to speak to this application. Mr. Soya.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just as a quick intro, in October, Planning Committee recommended approval of zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 4422 in the name of Carroll. The purpose of the application is to permit waterfront residential development on an undersized lot. The recommendation from Planning Committee is subject to the property being made subject to site plan control and a minor amendment to update the draft bylaw with a revised site plan. This application was originally deferred by committee, and when it returned, a revised and more detailed site plan was presented, and therefore a minor amendment is required to update the bylaw schedule. And I believe Mrs. Gibbs is here to speak to the application, and I'm available for any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gibbs.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Mayor Harding and members of council for your time today on this application. I'm Lisa Gibbs from the Permit Guy and the owner's agent. I don't actually have anything to add to this application other than to thank Mr. Soya and the members of council for your time on this one. Simply here to answer any questions should they arise. So that's about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, first and second reading moved by Councillor Mazin, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-121 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 Carroll Roll 4, 17-103 be read a first and second time. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And I just want to have a quick look here. I just realized we read bylaw 121 under the name of Terry and also bylaw 121 under this name. One of these I'm assuming is incorrect. Which is this bylaw? Terry was 121 that I've already read. Is Carol 121 as well? 141. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to change that to 141 as I'm listening. 141. And third and final. Okay, so this is regarding bylaw 141, not 121. Thought I read that number just a moment ago. Once again, that is carried. Thank you for that. We do have a minor amendment. It is moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2021-141 Carroll. And this amendment is minor in nature and does not require further public circulation. Is hereby approved prior to third reading. This amendment shall consist of a revised site plan to be attached to Schedule 2 of bylaw 2021-141. Minor amendment. All those in favor? That is carried. Third and final, moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-141 Carroll be read a third time and finally passed. Any comments prior to third reading? Seeing none. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, I think that confirms our regular business. We do have a number of future council meetings. The inaugural council meeting will be on November 22nd, December 14th, our Committee of Adjustment first meeting, General Finance on December 14th, and also council on the same date. I do want to take this one moment just before we get to the end of our meeting. And I want to personally thank Councillor Jagowitz, first of all, for putting your name forward a little over 4 years ago now, and for serving the community in Ward C so admirably. And I can say from where I've sat, and I think many around the table, your knowledge, your understanding of finance, your understanding of many of our bylaws has certainly not been forgotten, and certainly helped move this municipality forward with many of our accomplishments that were noted by the CIO at the beginning. Also, I do want to thank Chair Bridgman, Councillor Bridgman, who also is retiring after her first term. And but our planning committee certainly excelled under your leadership and understanding some very, very heavy lifting items. Manette official plan amendment, certainly one of them, our new official plan as well. Countless meetings, but truly your accelerated learning, if you will, in all things planning for the township is appreciated, and wish you well as you move forward. Finally, after I think it's about 11 and a half years, not quite a full 12 years, but Councillor Hayes is decided that she's going to spend more time with her family. And certainly one of those people who've sat around this table and those people who've watched our meetings, Councillor Hayes, from my perspective, one of the most balanced councillors, understanding all sides, listening to all sides of every debate, and then finding the right solution to move forward. The people of Walker's Point certainly happy and to have you, and have certainly represented them extremely well in your 11 and a half years. For those who don't know, 12 years ago, we had a councillor start with us who resigned, I think, after about 6 months in, maybe 8 months in, and Councillor Hayes was joint council at that particular point. So that's why we're just shy of 12 years as her tenure with us. So thank you. And I will say, as we move forward, one thing that I do wish for all those new councillors who are joining, possibly watching today, Congratulations on your election. Councillor Kelly, or Mayor-elect Kelly. I look forward to your leadership as you move forward over the next term of council, and stringing together this band. I don't want to say of misfits, but I think we can all agree that we all have very strong personalities, and certainly have worked together to accomplish a lot. And I know that over the next term of council, you too will accomplish a lot as you move forward. And I think that's about it. Sure. Hold on.
Okay, so am I good now? So never to be shy for words here. Mayor Harding, I would like to thank you for the 4 years that I have been with you to go through as mayor. We started with a flood. We went through a pandemic. And so, and beyond that, as CAO Hammond highlighted, we got a lot of work done during this. I made great friendships, a wonderful group of people who've worked well together, and I wish them all well going forward. And I really do want to thank you, and the district and provincial level too. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Well, I want to take the opportunity to thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have had a long history together for sure as councillors, and some very, very tough, honestly, for
Oh, and we're losing. Internet is the one thing we did not solve. Or certainly didn't fully solve that. Ruth, you're broken up a little bit here. Did we lose her completely? Okay, Ruth, we're gonna pause that for a brief moment, or our cable company will certainly pause that. Councillor Jagowitz.
Actually, thank you, Chair. I'd like to carry on with what Ruth started. I think she was trying to say thank you for the term you have served, not just the 4 years that I've been involved in, but the 8 years that you have served, and wish you well in your ventures going forward. Thank you for sharing your abilities with the township. Certainly, you add color and flavor to things. Thank you.
Thank you. It's actually 12 years that I've sat around this table now. So same as Councillor Edwards, and longer than that for Councillor Nishikawa. Councillor Hayes, we don't need this to everybody say something, but Councillor Hayes.
Thank you. I just wanted to say what a pleasure it was to work with everybody and to represent Muskoka Lakes. It's been a wonderful time. It's been a trying time sometimes. We haven't always seen eye to eye, but we've always respected each other. And my hope is that will go on with future councils.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to thank you as mayor and all the other councillors. It's been a pleasure to work with everyone over the last 4 years and the last 12 years. And to add a little bit of humor to it, Frank, we're going to miss your bull. Because with Zoom, we see that picture behind you all the time, and it's been great. But thank you to everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Alan. Certainly, I echo all those words. Two final resolutions, one moved by Councillor Jagowitz, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the bylaw 2022-180 to confirm the proceedings of council on November 9th, 2022 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? That is carried. And before I finally adjourn the meeting, the one thing that I do, it was stated a little bit, talked about some respect around the table. And 4 years ago, it was certainly my goal to bring some respect around this table with staff, with council. And for those who were around the prior term or the prior 2 terms that I know Councillor Edwards, Hayes, and Nishikawa served with myself, this was a commonplace, if you can see this, that was used regularly. And it was always my vow not to use the gavel to call or gain order. And I think that's a testament to everyone around this table that we did not have to use it over the last 4 years. So I appreciate that. So moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved that council adjourn at 2:15. That clock hasn't been changed yet. And the next regular meeting of council will be held on Wednesday, December 14th, 2022 at 1 p.m. electronically from the council chambers, municipal offices in Port Carling, Ontario. I'm going to do this. All those in favor? One and done. Thank you all. Have a great day. Oh, that's carried too.